Hello and welcome to our presentation on Qi and Qigong, resonating with gentle transformation. So today, you'll get a brief hello from me so you know who this person is. And then we'll talk briefly about the history of Qigong, just the high notes. Inside of that, we'll look at a few noteworthy moments and we'll look at a little bit of etymology and use of language with those terms. Then we'll transition into thinking about Qi itself. I'll have a few reflection questions for you that you're welcome to discuss with others, and we'll explore a little bit of Qi together. Also look at a few characteristics of Qi, and we'll conclude with a mini practice. All right, without further ado, hi, I'm Jenny. So who am I? I am a Qigong instructor. I am Holden Qigong certified, so Lee Holden. If you've ever seen Qigong on PBS, you've probably seen him. And I'm also a student of Mimi Demers. Mimi is a brilliant teacher out of the UK. Who has a beautiful multicultural perspective. So I like to synthesize from their styles as well as bringing in elements of other Qigong that I have studied. So this pretty much summarizes that my style is very eclectic. I am not a lineage holder. I don't subscribe to any one version of Qigong. In part, this is because my teachers have also been eclectic. But also I believe in viewing Qigong as a beautiful expression, something that relies on the history that stands behind it, but also very naturally evolves forward. And for these reasons, I enjoy being eclectic. What about my personal practice? Well, I do have over 5 years of practice with Qigong. It was something that was introduced to me about that time in my life, and I just became hooked. I transitioned and have been really focused on Qigong ever since. But before that, I had nurtured a practice of yoga and belly dance. Belly dance was my first love. I got to a point where I didn't want the performative side so much as I wanted the benefits that I was receiving from the practice itself for my body, soul, and heart. Qigong really spoke to that, so it was a very natural transition for me to move from belly dance to Qigong. As far as my professional experience, I am practiced in online learning, and great part that's due to my master's degree in TESOL, teaching English to speakers of other languages. I also have a bachelor's in linguistics, so word nerd. But in addition to this, I am currently an orchard assistant. I work in the Home Orchard Education Center locally here on the Clackamas Community College campus. And in the past life, I was a sous chef. So I actually really feel that even though this seems like a lot of varied experience, when it comes to teaching Qigong, there's something that I draw from everything in my past that has led me to be the teacher I am today. Fun facts. I love my chickens, and in fact, you may hear them chime in from time to time while we're recording today. Chicken Qigong is a popular practice in my household. More on that later if you so desire, but I'll leave it at that for now. I am also a forest dweller living in the forest of Clackamas County, just a stone's throw away from Portland, Oregon. All right, enough about me. Let's talk about Qi. So we'll take a snapshot history of Qigong next. And I do want to reiterate, this is just a little bit of a nutshell. There is a lot more that you could study if you are interested in exploring this history further. However, let's take a look at a few of our early historical roots. So Qigong describes many practices that were born from different observations of nature throughout ancient China. Ancient China was an agrarian culture, and so, of course, it was very natural, not only in China, but in many cultures around the world, to observe what was happening in the natural world and learn from this. So this is how Qigong was birthed in the first place. Now when it comes to the concept of Qi and the concepts of yin and yang, all of which are integral to the philosophy that is at play in Qigong, we can trace those back to the I Ching, which was popularized around 1122 BC. Following this, about 1028 to 221 BC, we see shamanic animal dances becoming popular in these ancient cultures. Again, something that was common around the world, but in China, we take this as one of our high points. I like it because it speaks to the animal frolics that we still use today in Qigong. And also a lot of the motions and the moves of Qigong came from these observations of how animals move, and then observations of the benefits in our own body when we mimic those motions. So even though it wasn't codified necessarily as a health practice at this time, there's a lot rooted in these shamanic animal dances. Now, jet forward to 450 BC, and this is when we have the Tao Te Ching, which was maybe legendarily or purportedly penned by Lao Tzu. I'll leave that to your further research and discussion. But in the Tao Te Ching, breathing practices are described, and the relationship between breath and qi is brought to light with natural metaphor. So Lao Tzu hints at how we can build our energy, our life force, through the use of breath. Moving forward, we come to the birth of Qi practices. So we're getting a little more into what we might call Qigong. So approximately 300 BC, the Yellow Emperor's classic of internal medicine was recorded in writing. So the information in this classic, long-standing before that, and much of the exactitude is lost to history. But at this time, the written text of the Yellow Emperor's classic came into being. This is kind of the foundational text of traditional Chinese medicine. I have not attempted to read it yet because in my understanding, it's a text that's a little bit elusive because it is so archaic. But there are many who have studied it in depth, who have taken this forward and are able to decipher the rather cryptic text. Someday I may attempt to read this, but at any rate, it is a landmark in the codification of what has become known as traditional Chinese medicine. When we come to 168 BC, we discover this gorgeous chart that you see on the right side. This is the Dao Yin 2. This chart was found recently in the 20th century, but has been dated to approximately 168 BC. And what you see in this chart are specific movements. So what we might today refer to as Qigong movements. However, the key thing about this chart is that it actually connects these postures and forms to specific ailments. So we start to see the connection of how a body practice can speak to internal health. Then another key point in our history, jumping into AD 142, Wei Boyang at this time wrote the Cantong Qi, which can be translated as the kinship of the three forces. And this describes a lot of the relationships that we refer to today in our Qigong practice. So things like the 5 elements or the 5 phases, the 3 treasures or internal alchemy, the microcosmic orbit, these can be traced back to this Cantong Qi text. So here on this page, we've got kind of 3 key physical items that came up into history and relate to our Qigong practice today. All right, let's come forward. And I've got a question for you. Qigong, is it historic or is it modern? Well, kind of depends on what perspective you take. Yes, we have just talked about some ancient history, and by all means, yes, it is historic. It has this lineage. However, the term Qigong itself is fairly new. It was coined in the late 1800s and only came into popular use later on. You can see the last note on this page, 1936, there was a journal article, Special Therapy for Tuberculosis Qigong. And this was one of the first kind of authoritative publications of the term Qigong. When we look back in time, there really were more than 30 terms to describe these different physical, energetic practices that today are referred to as Qigong. The term came about basically to codify, to bring them together and call them one thing. But that's also part of why today, when you see Qigong, one teacher and another teacher are not necessarily going to be teaching exactly the same thing. There's not a standardization of what Qigong is, other than to say that they are ancient energy practices born out of China. All right, so I'll leave the exact answer to this question for you to consider in your own mind. Let's go ahead and look a little bit at the etymology and use of the terms Qi and Qigong. So if we look at Chinese characters, and I will say I am a linguist, but I am not specialized in Chinese characters or in Chinese. So further research may be warranted if you want to dig into this further. But we'll take a very quick look at one of the oldest representations of Qi, which you can see on the top here. This was found in an oracle bone, so script found on an oracle bone around, dating back to 1600, 1046 BC, somewhere in here. And what this character describes, these three levels, can be related to the mist of rising clouds. So we think of a lake, perhaps, with mist rising off of it. Cue the chicken Qigong. These three lines additionally may be related to the three treasures. We'll take a little deeper look at this later on. But the three treasures basically representing the lower, the mid, and the upper Dantian. Now, if we jump forward through time, there was quite an evolution of different forms of this character, but we can see below here the character in common use today. This is the traditional Chinese character, and it's in modern use. Now, it's shifted a little bit. It still includes these three lines. We still have this vapor or this steam, but below that we have the character for rice. So it becomes steam rising off rice, and we can think of this metaphor of nourishing energy. So Qi, nourishing energy. As well, we see a synthesis of the fire that's needed to cook food, to cook rice, and the water that is the steam represented from the steam rising off. And we continue to see that solid base and getting a little more ethereal as we rise up. So there's a lot of suggested metaphor in the character for Qi itself. Very simply, though, you can think of it as nourishing energy. At the bottom, I thought this was kind of an interesting find. We have the in-gram frequency of Qi, or in other words, how often this term appears in use. Now, caveat, this is based on Google Books, so only the texts that are available in Google Books, primarily going to be in English. But what you can see is right here around 1850, shortly before the term Qigong started to be in use, we see the first publication of the term Qi. And then we can jump forward and see that its popularity is on the rise. So I found that to be kind of an interesting reflection. I'm going to turn down the chicken Qigong for a moment. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. And we'll take a little look together next at Qigong. So if we're extending from Qi, and again, we see that character here, pardon me, we can add to that the character Gong. So we've got Qi, the energy, breath, life force, all of these things related to Qi. Gong, then, is often translated as cultivation or work, and it has the suggestion of skillfulness, of merit or achievement. So this isn't work that you do in a morning. This is work that you do sustained over the long term. And when you put these concepts together, Qigong, this is the notion of skillfully working with the energy of life, cultivating the personal life force. Now I will say, again, take this as a snapshot. This is a discussion that can be expounded upon. In particular, my teacher Mimi Kodamer, I think, has a very beautiful breakdown. She is a Chinese speaker. She is more qualified than I to have this discussion in depth. So if you are interested, I would suggest popping over to Addie's Move to Meditate podcast. She interviewed Mimi on July 20th, 2022. Listen to that episode if you want to take this discussion a little further. I think you'll enjoy it. But for now, in the interest of our time and exploration today, we'll move on to actually getting to know Qi itself in a more embodied and personalized way. So first, a few questions for you to consider. How have you experienced Qi? Which of your senses were involved during this experience? And for you, was it an embodied experience, something you felt within your form? Or did it manifest in some other way? Or, and this is a perfectly valid response, are you still waiting for the Qi to reveal itself? There's no judgment, no pressure to have any particular answer here. But I offer these as reflection questions, and questions you can bring into discussion with others around you. Now, let's do a little experiment for feeling the Qi. Let me bigify myself a little bit here. Okay, cool. So, just a very quick little warm-up exercise. I'm going to invite you to take just a few long, deep breaths, feeling your feet making contact with the earth below. And then bringing one palm over the other, gently rub the back of the opposite hand here. Getting a little friction, a little heat, literally a little energy. And then we'll switch. Do the same thing on the opposite side. And then we're going to take our fingernails and we're going to rub those together. Now, the meridians of the upper body meet at the tips of the fingers. Some of them ending there, some of them beginning there. So this is naturally a very charged place in our body, and rubbing the fingernails together like this activates this region. Now I'm going to throw in, give yourself 3 big claps. And then relax the palms. Hold them one facing the other as if you're holding a little ball. a chi ball. And you can gently pulse on the edges of this chi ball. And sense and feel into this experience. Maybe you feel something energetic between the palms. Maybe you don't. Again, as before, whatever your sensations, they're valid. Whatever your lack of sensation, also valid. Chi is something we all experience in a slightly different way. For me, there's kind of a magnetic tingle. All right, let's make that chi ball a little smaller and a little smaller. And then we'll gently tuck one palm over the other at the lower abdomen. Take a breath and release. So, super brief, snappy practice, but kind of a fun way to experiment with feeling the chi. Now, let's talk about chi itself. And I've brought a few quotations just because I think that Ted Kapchuk did one of the best jobs I've come across of describing chi. So if you'll bear with me reading a little bit to you, this is from The Web That Has No Weaver, and really exemplifies the Chinese perspective that chi is manifest in everything. Additionally, it resonates. So the first passage, no one English word or phrase can adequately capture chi's meaning. So, further discussion for all translations. For the Chinese, everything in the universe, inorganic and organic, is composed of and defined by its chi. Chi is not so much a force added to lifeless matter, but the state of being of any phenomena. For the Chinese, chi is the pulsation of the cosmos itself. So I think this is something to bear in mind when you discuss chi, is that in English we do our best to translate this to life force energy, nourishing energy. But there's a little more nuance to chi in Chinese. Now, the other thing that I would recommend, in our Western mindset, we're often looking for cause and effect. Now, when we're talking about chi, that's not exactly the point. So the next passage, chi does not cause change. Chi is present before, during, and after any metamorphosis. If chi is the link, resonance is the method. So it's not so much about A causing B, but more about A and B resonating together. And the example he gives is the chi of the sun, rain, and soil resonate with the chi of the seed to bring forth a plan that already contains the germ of the plant and the qualities that the sun, rain, and soil touch. So the supposition of cause equals effect isn't as relevant here as recognizing that the whole plant, the blueprint, the pattern, everything already exists in the seed, and it's simply waiting for the resonance of the right elements to express itself. Now, we can say this maybe more simply, potentially more profoundly, by just looking at the first law of thermodynamics. Energy can neither be destroyed nor created. It can only be transformed. And think of that when you think of chi. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed. Now, if we want to get just a little more complex for today and we'll leave our presentation portion at this. We can talk about the states of qi. In particular, I'd like to share the three treasures. These are kind of three primary states of qi. And if you think back to that original, the original symbol for qi, the three lines, they represent Jing, qi, and shen. So Jing is the form of qi that is often connected to the lower dantian. It is the most yin form and also the most solidified, the most physical form of qi. It is form itself and represented by the body, by the natural world. And our next state of qi we call qi. Imagine that. And the qi is connected with the middle dantian. It's a balance between yin and yang. Considered transformational energy, it itself is formless, often related most closely to breath or the air. And then shen relates to the upper dantian. It is the most yang form of qi, and we relate it to the energy of cosmic light, consciousness. It is also formless, and we relate it to mind and spirit. So if you think about water is a great parallel here for qi, in that water can be solid ice, flowing water, or vapor. Qi as well can be solid Jing, flowing qi, or shen. And this expression that we see on the right side here is kind of a common way to describe this. We can refine Jing into qi. We can refine qi into shen. And if we refine shen, we return to emptiness. Now, again, there's a lot we could continue to say about qi and qigong, but in the interest of keeping this presentation around 30 minutes, I'm going to leave it at that. I will share my contact information, so if this is something that you'd like to explore further, feel free to look me up at my website, QiCurious.com, or shoot me an email, Jennie at QiCuriousQigong.com, or find me on either Instagram or Facebook at QiCuriousQigong.com. I've also slapped my phone number there in case there's an event or something special that you want to reach out in a more direct way for. So once again, I'm Jennie. This has been a QiCurious presentation. And for now, I'm going to say thank you. We will do a small follow-up practice for the three treasures that I'll record in an additional video. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.